Enemy at the Gates, 2001's action drama war film directed and written by Jean-Jacques Annaud. Enemy at the Gates possesses a much greater amount of polish compared to some of the gritty, all too real war adaptations that we featured on the channel so far. But what this film delves into is the psychological pressures of sharpshooters. Of course, I'll be covering key plot details, so this is your spoiler warning. And why not give us a subscribe to our new YouTube channel, The Horror Exchange. Let's get into it. Being an accomplished sniper is absolutely no easy task. I think it goes without saying that the further back in time you go, the less forgiving older weaponry was and the more manual and skilled the shooter had to be. I've always had a fascination with the role of the sniper and how many different factors play into a successful mission. Sniping is often a very isolating role on the battlefield, sometimes spending weeks at a time on their own or with a solitary spotter. Firstly, it begins with reconnaissance, scouting the area, finding a good spot with good vision and lying there motionless for days at a time, sleep deprived. There could be high winds, the target could be much further away than anticipated. Sometimes the Coriolis effect or the turn of the earth has to be taken into account to raise the chances of a successful hit being registered. And above all else, the most important aspect is the ability to remain undetected before, during and after firing a shot. Granted, I'm not a professional sniper, so I've probably missed out some details here, but that is the generalization for how these soldiers operate under ridiculously high pressure with quite often only one opportunity to accomplish the mission. Before I jump in, I will be discussing the film's adaptation and most likely dramatisation of Vasily and the Battle of Stalingrad. So this is just to acknowledge that there probably will be some inaccuracies between the picture and real world events. Enemy at the Gates follows the protagonist Vasily Zaitsev, played by Jude Law, an actual Russian sniper who killed 225 soldiers in 1942 during the infamous conflict. Vasily is widely used as a beacon of hope for the Soviet soldiers as they attempt to resist the German advance into Stalingrad. Allowing the city to fall would be catastrophic for Russia, mainly due to the significance and symbolism of Stalingrad itself being named after the General Secretary of the Communist Party, Joseph Stalin. And this is where the psychology played a huge role in this battle. If Hitler was successful in taking the city, well, all hope would have been pretty much lost. The wind would well and truly have been taken out the sails of the Russian army. And just when they needed it most, Vasily was deployed onto the front line. His talents, honed from a young age hunting with his grandfather, did not go unnoticed and began to tweak the attention of political officer Commissar Danilov. Danilov is challenged by his own superior, again through psychological pressure, to find a solution to the Soviets being overrun by the Germans. Amongst peers, Danilov goes out on a limb and suggests that himself and the other political officers should find heroes who they can use for propaganda and broadcast their war stories to the rest of the soldiers to inspire them to fight harder and ultimately give them hope for a victory. Of course, Danilov's hero in question is Vasily, whom he witnessed the talents of firsthand during a rather intense scene where they're both lying on top of fallen comrades in a fountain, taking their opportunity to dispatch of a high-ranking German officer and some foot soldiers. So with the help of Danilov, Vasily's contributions to the battle are pushed to the masses. He becomes famous amongst the Russian people and infamous to the opposing side. Day after day, he kills high-ranking officer after high-ranking officer, and all of this disruption to the German advance garners the attention of one individual, Major Koenig, portrayed by Ed Harris, who did a masterful acting job here. The Major just oozes presence and prestige. When he walks into a room, you know about it. The Germans weren't really messing around here at all. They've brought in the Major to deal with Vasily. Whenever I watch Enemy at the Gates, I always feel intimidated by this character. The medals he wears, the accolades that he comes with. His backstory is that he's the director of a sniper school back in Germany. He literally teaches others how to be the best sharpshooters, meaning he knows all of the tactics to getting the better of his opponent. The prospect of having a showdown, a 1v1 with the Major, is daunting, and even Vasily says it himself, he can't beat him. Psychologically, Vasily is already weltering to the prowess of the Major and the over-exaggeration of the Russian propaganda propaganda starts to work against Vasily. The Major knows everything about him, but Vasily knows nothing about Major Koenig. We can all relate to what Vasily is feeling here. For example, I remember competing in football or soccer when I was younger, and if there was a player on the opposing team who was signed to a professional team, an academy, and in the running to make it as a professional in their adult years, well, their reputation would precede them, and you would feel almost scared to go toe-to-toe with them, to face them head on. In this context though, the opposing person is known for their skill with a weapon. The Major's reputation is legit though, and this is realised through their first encounters together on the battlefield. He's one step ahead of Vasily at every opportunity, despite Vasily working with a team of snipers and the Major operating alone. He's so resourceful with his environment, using mannequins and deceased bodies to bait out Vasily. The Major is the real deal, and one wrong move means it's all over. He doesn't just have nous though, he's unbelievable with his rifle. Kulikov, played by Ron Perlman, is sent to help Vasily in his duel. Kulikov studied under the Major for some time in Germany and knows a lot of his tricks, but he ends up getting flatlined mid-air when jumping between two buildings. And I think this is something what Enemy at the Gates does really well. It ramps up the pressure as the film goes on. It really turns the screw, and the Major gets closer and closer to nailing Vasily. So we've discovered that the Major is brilliant with a sniper. He knows how to manipulate his surroundings to blend in and remain undetected, but he's also got an even darker side to him. Sasha is a young boy and a native of Stalingrad, whom the Major takes under his wing to clean his boots and pretty much be his servant. As a native, Sasha knows everything about Vasily, being exposed to the propaganda firsthand and being in close proximity to him on a regular basis. But Sasha is acting as a double agent. Deployed by Danilov, he is bringing back information to the Russians whilst pretending to help Koenig find Vasily. It all goes wrong for Sasha though, in the most horrendous of ways. The Major finds out about Sasha and ends up hanging him from a pipe in order to draw out Vasily from his hiding spot in the closing section of the film. Obviously I can't show this on YouTube, but the silhouette of a hanging child is disgusting to look at and has stayed with me for many years since I first watched the film. In the final showdown, Danilov is with Vasily, and under the guilt of playing with fire and sending Sasha effectively to his own death, he leans out from the wall and Koenig headshots him. Being so far away, the Major thinks he's ended Vasily and completed his mission, and leaves his hiding spot only to be intercepted by Vasily in a train yard, who then shoots the Major. Ultimately, Vasily has been victorious in the end, but Jesus Christ, he's lost a lot of things along the way to finally come out on top. The whole time the Major has been working alone, a one-man band leaning on decades of experience, while Vasily has seen comrade after comrade fall to the hands of the Major. Yes, he's won in the end, but psychologically he's going to be scarred forever. And that's my breakdown on why I think Enemy at the Gates earns a spot on our Nightmare Fuel Hall of Fame. It doesn't cut massively deep like some of our other war entries, but boy does it have you leant forward when you're watching it. Do you agree with the points that I've made? Is there a more nightmarish movie about snipers out there? Let me know all your thoughts and feelings down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the Horror Exchange, and as always, I've been your host Hugh from Unleash the Ghouls, and I'll see you next time for another dose of Nightmare Fuel.